Economic and Community Development, David Lehman. My name is Jeff Pugliese. I serve as Vice President here at the Chamber, and I am joined on the management of today's event by my colleague and fellow VP, Johanna Bond. Johanna is managing the technical portion of today's event, which is being recorded and also being live streamed on Facebook Live. If you have a question for the Governor or for Commissioner Lehman, please type it into the Q&A portal and we will do our best to get it answered. If you have a question and you are calling into today's event, please send your question to Johanna's email, which is johanna@middlesexchamber.com, JOHANNA @middlesexchamber.com, and she will do her best to get your question answered. We have a number of questions that have already come into the Chamber office, so we will do our best to get to all of them, but we were also very respectful of the Governor's time and of the Commissioner's time and plan to conclude the event around 1 p.m. So without further delay, it is my pleasure to turn the program over to the President of the Middlesex County Chamber of Commerce, Larry Mchugh.
Thank you very much, Jeff. It gives me a great honor to be on this event today. Really excited about a lot of the activities that have been going on with the Chamber. We've got some activities coming up I just want to alert people to. This Sunday, we have our cruise night, which will be a virtual cruise day on Main Street, where we tend to go all the way down Main Street, recognizing police, fire, and hospital workers. We expect a couple hundred cars that are going to be starting out on that, and it'll be a virtual cruising of Main Street. And that it'll start up at Napa. Also, for future virtual Chamber events coming up, we have the Travelers Breakfast, which will be held on June 23rd at 8 o'clock in the morning. And we have Tony Finu, great young PGA pro, that'll be the speaker at that. We're really excited on July 15th to have Ed Liu, CEO, President of Jackson Labs. He'll be joining us from Bar Harbor, Maine. This will be very important. As you know, Jackson Labs is a world-renowned company dealing in areas that have be big concern to us as we move forward to look to see what the COVID situation looks like in the future. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't thank a couple individuals, Senator Norm Needleman and Tower Labs and Ted Rossi from the Rossi Group for giving us masks and other PPE donations here for our members. We just got 2,000 masks delivered here today for some of our businesses. And now it gives me a great honor to introduce our chairman, who's done a fantastic job this year leading the Chamber, Don DeVivo.
Thanks, Larry. Want to begin by wishing everyone a good afternoon, and it's great to have everyone back together, even though it's virtually. I think we had over 200 people registered for this event, and the support that our members have given the Chamber has been phenomenal. So thank you to all our members. We really appreciate it. And I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank the Chamber staff, led by Larry. He's been in every day and really working hard to keep everything together. I still think we've got the best Chamber in the country, and we've got the best staff. And I will tell you, we were shut down for a while in the offices. I think everyone's back in the office now, but I think the staff worked harder than they did during the normal year, which is saying a lot because we have a lot of activity going on. So thank you to them. I really do appreciate the effort that the entire staff has put in during this time, and we'll continue to be there and try and support our members as we reopen. So with that, I'll turn it back to Larry. I know we want to get to the Commissioner. Commissioner, thank you for being here. We appreciate it, and we look forward to hearing from the Governor as well. So Larry, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, thank you very much. Just a quick follow-up. My sincere thanks to Commissioner and also to our Governor for leading us through these very, very difficult and tough times. They've been really beacons for all of us in the state of Connecticut. Before introducing David Glidden, I want to really thank them for their sponsorship and mention a couple people that are very active from his staff on with our Chamber. Marianne Parati. I want to thank Fandra Yates for her great support. Adam Jamil has been working very, very closely with Jeff, and of course Susan Murphy through the foundation. We're really fortunate to have David Glidden in leadership at Liberty Bank. I think all of you can remember that I was on the Liberty Bank board for many years. He has done, I think, just an outstanding, fantastic job of leading the bank through these very difficult COVID-19 crisis. Prior to Liberty, David served in a variety of leadership roles in the banking sector, serving most recently as regional president for the Northern New England and Upstate New York region for TD Bank. We are also fortunate to have David as a member of our executive committee, and we appreciate the fact that he's given the Paycheck Protection Program updates at each meeting of our executive committee and board of directors since this crisis began, along with Greg Mchugh from Essex Bank. Under David's leadership, Liberty continues to provide top-level service to its customers and to our community. And I know David continues to foster this and continue to move forward. David, again, I want to thank you for your strong leadership and your unbelievable support of our chamber. It's a great honor to introduce David Glidden.
Thanks, Larry, and thanks for that Liberty plug. I don't have to do that now, so I appreciate it. But thanks, Larry, and thanks, Don. And echo Don's comments. I want to thank the Middlesex Chamber of Commerce team for your continued commitment to all of us and all the members in the business community during the COVID crisis. You guys continued to adapt moment by moment and come up with creative ways to keep all of our respective organizations involved. Today's a great example of that. And Larry, goes without saying, like we all know, it says a lot about your leadership and your great staff. So thank you. And welcome, everybody. I guess we all know, no matter how large or small our businesses are, and regardless of what industry we're in, COVID-19 has certainly tested everybody's strength and resiliency. And none of our organizations have been immune to the challenges that it's put upon us and our employees. At Liberty Bank, it's like everybody's been a trying time, but we've been very fortunate to kind of be in the position we are. We've been able to stay open, albeit in a drive-through limited service model, and be there for our customers. As Larry mentioned, we've been able to help and assist in the Paycheck Protection program. We've helped well over 3,500 businesses, approaching $400 million in funding, helping our small businesses in the area. And also, Liberty is, the oldest bank in Connecticut and one of the largest mutual banks left, with a lot of resources and a great charitable foundation. We've also been able to, and felt fortunate to be in a position to donate well over, just during this brief crisis, $300,000 to our frontline heroes and hospitals and such. So that's why it's an honor to lend our support to a meeting like this. We all know, I think, virtual meetings and luncheons is certainly a sign of the times. My calendar isn't any less full, but it's with Zoom and WebEx and Microsoft Teams. So anyway, it's my real privilege and honor, and I know, as I mentioned, the governor's going to be joining us, but to introduce the Honorable Governor Ned Lamont and the DECD Commissioner David Lehman, who I know is on with us right now. Governor Lamont is the first governor in Connecticut in 80 years to get his start as a business person and a job creator, and I think we all can see that, the benefit of that. And while he's certainly been focused on many issues such as public health, safety, the environment, 21st century governance, and other critical priorities, he's been terrific in expanding economic opportunity in the Connecticut, and it's certainly a top priority of he and his administration. When the governor was sworn into office in January 9th, 2019, I'm sure, like me, when I came into this chair a little over a year ago, never thought he'd be leading the state through a worldwide pandemic. So as COVID-19 continues to evolve day by day, hour by hour, and minute by minute for all of us, but certainly there are so many constituents vying for his time. I think the governor's been terrific and very transparent in his televised daily briefings, but it's significantly important today that we hear from him and David and the hardworking organizations that kind of make up the Middlesex Chamber. So I know the governor will be joining us in stream, so I'll thank him up front, but I certainly want to thank David Lehman, who's with us right now. I know everybody's eager to hear on the state's latest response efforts and the plans on gradually opening up the Connecticut economy and how we'll move forward as collectively and together in a community. So really on behalf of the Middlesex Chamber, it's my honor to introduce Governor Ned Lamont, who will join us shortly in midstream, and introduce right now his top economic advisor, David Lehman. So David, welcome, and I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
David, thank you. I appreciate the generous introduction. And as David mentioned, the governor is just running a bit behind from a previous event, but he'll be here in about 5 minutes. So save all your hard questions for him, and I'm happy to take any of the easy ones in advance. But first, Jeff and Joanna, Larry, Don, really appreciate the warm introduction. Larry, I think you called me a beacon. I've been called many things over the past 3 months, but I don't think beacon has been one of them yet. So I appreciate the generosity. And next time I'm virtually or not in Middlesex, I'd like to be part of the virtual cruise or the virtual wine tour as opposed to the virtual lunch. But this will definitely do for today, and really appreciative of you having me here to make a few comments, and certainly the governor as well. Just a couple comments at the outset. A week from yesterday, June 17th, will be our second phase. And this is by far the biggest phase in terms of both employment as well as impact of the Connecticut economy. And we can get into some of the details of how we thought about the phasing of our reopening versus other states. Two differences I would point out at the outset are, one, we felt very strongly that there needed to be approximately 4 weeks between phases to understand the potential signal from increased activity and increased viral transmission, whereas a lot of other states are 2 to 3 weeks, but we felt 4 was important. But recognizing that 4 is longer than most other states, we also have fewer phases. So really we have 2 significant phases, phase 1 and phase 2. There is more stuff coming online in phase 3, which will likely be mid-July, including bars and nightclubs and some of the larger indoor events. But hopefully after June 17th, and we know this happens slowly, and we expect it to happen slowly from a lot of the polling that we've done and what we saw in phase 1, but you will see the vast majority, close to 95% of our economy be open, including things like indoor dining, gyms, amusement parks will be open, lodging will be open as well. Certainly all retail is open at this point in time, indoor recreation like movie theaters, as well as bowling alleys, and many other things. So this is by far, again, our biggest phase and our most important phase. And I think one of the critical things, and we could talk more about the data, but as we get into the second phase here, and the data in Connecticut, for those that don't track it on a daily basis, has been excellent. And I just saw today's numbers. Again, we've been around 2% positivity, 2% testing positivity. We're doing around 5,000 tests a day, so we still need to increase that, and will increase that. But the positivity has been very, very significant. Positive, it's been low, which has been very positive. In addition to that, hospitalizations continue to go down meaningfully. So at our peak, Connecticut had roughly 2,000 hospital beds utilized for COVID treatment, and we're around 250 right now. So you've seen almost a 90% decline in hospitalizations with low testing positivity. In addition, we're increasing our contact tracing. So all of this has been great. And in particular, the Northeast has done really well in this regard. I think one of the things we're going to really need to monitor, though, as we have our phase 2 kickoff next Wednesday, is what is the impact of that as camps and sports are going to start back up, as indoor dining happens. Are you going to see more transmission? And this is what you're seeing in some of the other states that are a bit ahead of us. You see some of these articles about Arizona, about Texas, about Florida, and I saw some news outlets even called it a second wave or a potential second wave this morning. I think it's too early, but we're really going to need to monitor that significantly as we get into early July and mid-July, given what we expect to happen on June 17th. So I see the boss just joined. So Governor, we just started here with the Middlesex Chamber, just started making a few comments, but I will hand it over to you to make a few comments in terms of the reopening of the economy and other stuff that's on your mind today.
Hey, Larry, Don, sorry to be late. We were opening for the new Boys and Girls Club, breaking ground. I can just give you a few thoughts on the opening. I think David probably gave you a lead in. Are you there, Larry?
I'm here.
Yeah, everyone's here, Governor, and there's around 150 or so people, and this is also being broadcast on Facebook.
Oh, well, I better be good then.
Yeah, we'll have to keep it clean.
Hey, Let me just say a couple things. We kept almost the vast majority of our GDP, our economy open. So when you hear about New York is now opening for construction and opening for manufacturing and opening for grab and go at the store, we never closed any of that down. We thought we could do that safely. We did do that safely. May 20th was sort of our second phase, relatively early there. We worked on that with our neighboring states, mainly Massachusetts and Rhode Island, since they're more closely aligned with us in terms of the positivity rate. I think that's gone pretty well. That was outdoor dining. That was, you know, the stores in general. David maybe went over this. I apologize if he did. The good news is that since May 20th, we've been, a few weeks now, and we've not seen an uptick. In fact, hospitalizations since then are down over 50%. So I think we did allow that to reopen in a thoughtful way. I've gone out to a number of meals outside. I've enjoyed it. I think everybody's followed the protocols. I think every day more customers are willing to get back to work. As David probably told you, you know, next week we'll be reopening, so I'll have about 95% of our economy going at that point. We do look around the rest of the country and see the spikes. I heard David mentioning Arizona and Texas. We're trying to figure out how much of that is related to community spread, what's the cause more narrowly. Obviously, I was talking about Arizona today. They've had some outbreaks in Indian reservations. They've had some outbreaks in their more congested areas. So we have to watch carefully to see if it's related to the gradual reopening or more sudden reopening in Arizona or something else. But I think right now, I'm feeling pretty confident that our next opening next week is going to be good. That will leave us with, you know, bars and some big indoor entertainment type venues. And we're going to have to make up our mind, you know, over the next few weeks about the rest of the reopening. And just leave you with, I feel a certain urgency to get things reopened as well, Larry. Do it with the eye on public health. But most of the billions of dollars of support from the federal government starts withering away end of June and certainly end of July. The big unemployment true up of $600, we can talk about that, see whether it discourages employment. But right now, to the point, it's over on July 31st. So I'm telling people, this is your time to slowly get back to work, employees back to work, customers back to work. And it's really key for our budget as well. We're in good shape relative to our peers, which is, you know, tallest guy in the pygmy colony. But because we've got a $2.5 billion rainy day fund, because we kept manufacturing going, we have not taken the same hit as many of our peers. Many of our, you know, Rhode Island, New York are out there borrowing in the market right now to pay operating expenses. We have not had to do that. And if we can get this economy up and operating, let's say over the next few months, certainly by the end of the year, I think we'll be able to weather this without big tax increases, without big cuts in spending. But that's why getting our economy moving again safely is such a priority. I think I'll leave it there, Larry.
Great. Thank you very much, Governor. This is Jeff Pugliese here from the Chamber team. We do have a number of, great to see you, sir. Thank you for joining us. And we do have a number of questions that have already come into our Q&A portal and also that have come into our office in advance of this event. So if you don't mind, we'll get right into those. We have a number of questions about schools reopening in the fall and whether you see that as likely at this point. And as a related question from our chairman, Don DeVivo, the DMV has now been issuing new CDLs for school bus drivers since they have been shut down. They have done some vehicle inspections and some testing of truck drivers. And it could be a huge problem with scheduling of tests and background checks as we move towards what we all hope is the reopening of schools. How will the state be handling the testing, and will additional resources be added for testing and for background checks? I believe you had a governor's executive order recently. Perhaps you can speak to that, sir.
All right, Jeff. David, I'll probably pass over the CDL to you if you don't mind. But for me, it's really important we get schools going again. We're ramping that up with summer camps now, summer schools later in July, graduate students getting back in August, graduate students in graduate housing. And assuming that tracks the way we hope it does, assuming the COVID stays under control, the degree to which we've done, our schools are going back in September. I think it's really key for our kids. I think we can do it safely. We can talk about that in a minute. And we're never going to get our economy moving again unless we have a school system that's working. And we thought about, hey, do you phase it in, some days on, some days off, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, mornings, and then afternoons? I don't think so, Jeff. I just don't think that works. I'd like to have as close to a normal school day as we can, especially for K through 8, K through 9. And I was talking to Scott Gottlieb yesterday. Scott is one of our healthcare advisors. Remember, he was FDA under Trump. And he said the important thing for schools is not whether you have 20 versus 26 kids in a class and desks 5 feet apart and not 4 feet apart. More importantly, he said it's cohorting, where that 5th grade class doesn't hang out with the rest of the school all the time. And that way you can limit the possibility of the spread. And the other thing I need for the schools is to give teachers confidence to get back. And those teachers who are over 60 find a way that they can teach safely. But it's a real priority for me to get our schools going again. David, do you have any intel on the drops?
Yeah, so, and Don, you and I can take this up offline, but I've been back and forth with DMV on a number of issues, and the goal is to start, to start getting these new licenses in place, because we realize without that, that's a real impediment to the economy. So where we can extend licenses, we should be talking about it. I'm not sure for the specific licenses you referenced that's possible, but for new drivers, I'll follow up with DMV leadership and we'll get you an answer in terms of the specific timing, but I'll shoot you an email after this.
Appreciate those answers, gentlemen, very much. Switching gears a bit here with respect to indoor and outdoor events as we collectively navigate the summer here. Can you give us a timeline of opening stages for indoor functions for banquets, including weddings and catering, and what specific criteria will be needed to transition to those stages? That came from Tom McDowell of the Connecticut Wedding Group.
Well, I'll start. And David and DECD, I think, have been doing really good work. We've tried to establish very clear protocols on how you open, when you can open, give people 2 weeks notice, be it restaurants, be it hotels, working close with the association to do it. Give your stores a little sense of confidence in terms of lawsuits and the such. They're following the protocols, give them some protection. Jeffrey, obviously outside is 95% safer than inside. So you can tell the way we've oriented towards outdoor church services, outdoor dining, outdoor events. We're going to be opening that up. David can talk about that. Indoor, we've been a little more cautious. We wanted to have, a few weeks of outside dining as a lead into the inside dining, just because of the nature of the spread there. People have been very careful in Connecticut, more careful in Connecticut than in other parts of the country, more careful when it comes to wearing the masks and the such. And that's allowed us to accelerate what we wanted to do. David,
I would just add on to that, Governor. Thank you. For the Connecticut wedding team and really the whole events business in Connecticut. I spent more time this week with them, and we're very focused right now in terms of additional capacity for outdoor events and providing clarity on indoor events. It is very likely that indoor events will be allowed in a meaningful capacity in our phase 3, which is going to be mid-July. And we're also working on providing clarity what August could look like and beyond. So that is on the docket right now. But as the governor mentioned, outdoor events, from a health perspective, our team feels very strongly that is, there can be a lot more size and capacity that can be done there safely. But we're going to provide guidance shortly for both outdoor and indoor events and try to project further into the future with the caveat that, it's obviously going to be contingent on the metrics, but that is on our priority list right now, and folks should expect to see stuff from us shortly.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Switching gears again a bit here, we've had a number of members approach our Human Resources Council with a question to the effect of, as the country begins to open back up and summer sets in, some of our employees have begun reporting upcoming vacation and travel plans to the HR department. Can you give us a sense of the administration's current thinking with respect to travel outside of the state and what guidelines businesses should follow when they return?
Well, up until recently, we were stay safe, stay at home, especially if you're over 65. As you know, Jeff, we did close hotels to everybody except for essential workers. Going back 2 or 3 months, we didn't really want a lot of New Yorkers coming up and staying and going back and forth. We tried to open and close things more or less at the same time, just to make sure you didn't have a lot of flow between states. But that's then and now is now. And I think you can travel and do it safely. One of the things I look at, Jeff, is the fact that our positivity rate, our infection rate is sort of comparable to our neighboring states now. So it's not like 2 months ago where, say, New York City had a much higher positivity rate than Eastern Connecticut. So I didn't want that travel back and forth. I think we feel a little more comfortable on that now.
I think the governor hit the nail on the head there. I mean, if you're going to a place where there is a flare-up or higher positivity, be careful. But with the second phase, the quarantine recommendation and the short-term lodging restriction, that's all going to come down. So we're encouraging people to come to Connecticut for vacation. And if someone from Connecticut wants to go elsewhere, vacation in state, they should be doing that.
Yeah,
Just
don't
be
go
careful.
to Phoenix this week.
That's right. Yeah. If you're going to, no one wants to summer vacation in Phoenix anyway, but that's exactly.
Understood. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Switching gears again a bit, we have a number of members who are currently in the process of bringing their employees back to work from unemployment. Can you offer some clarification as to what constitutes a fair excuse to stay on unemployment?
I can start. I mean, what we've said, this was tough. We were opening things up, remember hair salons, and then nobody wanted to go to work. And, we would tell the operator, look, you're opening at 50% capacity. If you have an employee who's very anxious about going back to work, maybe give them another month as you build up capacity. You have some flexibility in terms of your employees. But now it's a month later, and I think people are starting to go back to work. We have said that if you're, living at home with somebody who's much older at risk, we'll allow that health effect to give you a reason to maybe stay on unemployment for another month or so until we bring the positivity rate down. But you should be heading back to work pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, this gets to this definition of suitable employment, as the governor was talking. So if you're over 65, if you have a comorbidity, or if you live with someone that has it, right now we feel like that if they feel uncomfortable going back to work, and really they shouldn't if they're over 65, they do not have to. But others, if they're offered employment, and it's suitable, then they should be going back to work. Absolutely, we're restarting the economy. And the governor is going to be making an announcement later today on some other technology to help facilitate people getting back to work and those that are looking for jobs to get employed.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Governor. As a follow-up on unemployment, we know that the applications have essentially come in at unprecedented rates, and we know that necessitates some borrowing from the federal government. We have a question from a member that indicates the last time this happened in 2010 in the wake of the Great Recession, the resulting cost to Connecticut employers was essentially a massive increase in annual federal unemployment charges the following 6 years until what was essentially 2016. And we believe this is one of the reasons it took so long to rebound from that prior recession here. How do we plan on handling the tsunami of current unemployment claims to ensure employers are not saddled with this burden once again?
Well, Jeff, it was a tsunami. I think that's exactly right. 20 times more than we had in 2009. As you know, DOL was overwhelmed, and 5 years ago, they got rid of the call service center. So there was some catching up to do. They have caught up now. But to the heart of your question, here's what I've asked the delegation to think about. I've said, look, rather than extend that $600 true-up through the end of the year, which is the House bill, which I think is may discourage employment, I've asked that they turn that into a grant rather than a loan to our unemployment fund, make that a grant to our unemployment fund. And there's another 49 states in the same situation. And Jeff, the reason make it a grant instead of a loan is so we don't have to have a jack up in unemployment taxes, and it helps small business and allows us to power through, so we can get out of this recession sooner. That's my strong recommendation to the delegation.
Thank you, Governor. And gentlemen, these questions are coming in hot, so I'm going to keep going until you tell me not to. So moving on to the next one here. Anthony Asante, a key member of ours from Mchugh Asante Wealth Management, indicates that most businesses I talk to can't afford to give their employees a raise at this time, never mind a 5% raise. can the state of Connecticut afford a 5.5% raise for state employees at this time?
Look, I've been very clear with labor. I'll be blunt. I'll tell you exactly what I put on the table. I said, we've got a lot of our workforce who couldn't telecommute, who are front lines going out there, social service workers, corrections guys, putting themselves at some risk in this COVID pandemic, weren't able to telecommute. And I thought they deserved some combat pay. That's how I would have done it in the private sector. But I've also said, Jeff, that the idea of offering an across-the-board pay increase on July 1, 5.5%, is the wrong thing to do right now. And I wish you'd step up, because I've got 20% unemployment. I've got private sector folks who are taking furloughs, taking pay cuts, doing everything they can to keep their employment. Unfortunately, Larry knows this, the way it works in politics is your predecessor signs a longer term contract, and it's his successor who's got to fulfill that contract, and that's on my watch. So it's a contractual obligation on July 1, but I think you know where I stand on that issue.
Okay, Governor, thank you very much. Commissioner, I believe this next one is probably more geared towards your department. We know that you and your team have been very busy, and we're all grateful for those efforts. As we also know, many businesses have applied for PPP and forbearance with their existing lenders, and there are numerous businesses who are restructuring and or refinancing at lower rates and need subordination agreements signed by the commissioner. As this activity is needed by our businesses and banks to move along difficult social distancing applications to closings, which in many cases provide savings or needed relief to start the economy while also creating jobs. Is your staff making sure that these are done in a timely manner and are given instructions to make this a top priority?
So that sounds like a very specific question. And if whoever asked that should feel free to follow up with me afterwards if they're not getting the response time that they should be getting. But listen, subordination agreements, amendments, we've gotten a lot of them, and we are trying to work expeditiously. Obviously, there is a lot going on, and there's a stretch on resources, but the staff knows that we should be moving with urgency here, as that's what's required of us and expected of us. So if folks are not seeing that, they should contact me directly and express their concerns about that. I would just say more generally on subordination agreements, we have been employing a different framework on that than my predecessor. Specifically, we're making sure that the taxpayer dollars are, cared for in a way that I think they should be. So we are doing them occasionally, but we've done less subordination agreements because some of them, candidly, I don't think have made sense for taxpayers. But I can go through that with whoever asked the question, and we will certainly give an answer, whatever it is, expeditiously.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll make sure we connect you and the gentleman who presented that question. The next one is from the owner of two outstanding locations here in Middlesex County, Powder Ridge Mountain Park and Resort and Brownstone Exploration and Discovery Park, two excellent economic generators here. Why are amusement parks being set at 25% capacity while everyone else is at 50%?
That's a great question.
Why is that, David?
Yeah. So 25% is the starting capacity. We are going to go to 50% in phase 3. And the reason is just the sheer number of people at 25 or 50% for that matter of some of our larger parks here in the state of Connecticut. Other states, we are going to be the first state in the region to open our outdoor amusement activities like Brownstone and like Quasi or Lake compounds. My expectation is they're going to be opened in either late June or mid-July in other neighboring states. So we thought it made sense to start earlier and given we realize it's a 3 or maybe a 4-month season, but starting at 25%, given 25% for some of these facilities could be 500 or 1,000 people, and those are crowds that we're really not seeing in other areas at this point. So we thought it was prudent to start earlier, but a little bit slower than 50%.
Thank you, Commissioner. Governor, this next one for you, if you don't mind, sir. We've had a number of questions come in about the potential for a special legislative session. We know that you've exchanged some letters with legislative leadership. Can you give us some real-time intelligence on what that looks like as we come upon the end of the fiscal year here?
Yeah, inviting the legislature back into session probably within the next month, talking with the legislative leaders. I would like to be sort of strict about what we're doing. Number one is police accountability. I think for reasons you understand, our state police are taking the lead on this, as is the Judicial Committees and the legislature work together to have a very clear set of protocols. And secondly, absentee voting. I don't want everybody in long lines like you saw that in Georgia the other day during their primary voting. I just think that's risky behavior, especially before we have a vaccine. So I've done an executive order that says that you can vote by mail for our August primary, but I need the legislature to make a similar proclamation as regards our November election. Could be a busy election, so make it easier for people to vote by mail. Those are our two priorities.
Thank you, Governor. Switching gears a bit here, we have a number of public officials on the call here, mainly municipal officials, and we have some questions about what guidance you can provide on resuming public meetings for municipalities.
We haven't really restricted that as far as I know, David. They've got flexibility to do it. I salute them for doing more Zoom, more remotely. I don't quite know how the legislature is going to come back. Are they going to have 151 people in that in the chamber, or are they going to be able to phase that in some way? But I understand it's easy to vote maybe remotely, but in terms of getting the public input, they want to have a better opportunity to do that.
Yeah, no, that's right, Governor. I think the balance here is, in person versus what remote options are possible in a way that is appropriate for some of the decisions that are going to be made at these meetings. So here, Doug Delana and the municipal officials who are on our weekly, we have a weekly call with municipal leadership across the state, and there have been a number of questions on that. So, and I realize that not everyone is content with kind of the options that are out there. So we just need to keep having the conversation, but this is something we shouldn't generalize on. We welcome very specific asks in terms of enabling some of these decisions to be made in a way that you all think is appropriate. And if it's back to where we were in January, we'll need to make a judgment on that. But anything where we can keep folks safe, we want to do that throughout this emergency.
Thank you both very much. We're getting a number of questions, and especially from sports fans like me who are anxious to get back out on the fields and have our pro teams and semi-pro teams practicing on our local fields here. And also a related question, as school goes back in the fall, obviously the fall sports season, we want to make sure we protect that if it's safe to do so. So any thoughts on that front, gentlemen?
So it was June 17th, youth sports, adult sports. Jeff, your softball league potentially versus Larry's team, all of that is able to happen. There are hygiene rules and number of people in the field rules that we put in place. That's up on the DECD website, but all of that's able to start June 17th, and camps are going to start that following Monday. So we understand the importance of sports and recreation for our kids, as well as us that are not kids. And then, the part about pro sports or semi-pro sports, most of you are aware the Travelers event is going to happen. I'm sure this whole group is aware, given where it is going to happen here at the end of June. And, we're getting lots of other requests from sporting teams to be able to start practicing and start doing games. So it feels like the Hartford Athletics is going to be doing that later this summer. Hopefully, we'll see what happens with Major League Baseball here. But we have a framework up now where DECD, with consulting with other members like Public Health, have the ability to basically approve pro sport events that want to come back online. So we're going to go, the state's going to go as fast as the pro sports teams want to go here.
Jeff, I'll give you an example. 3 months ago in March, where the league decided not to allow the high school basketball championships, and there was hell to pay, and there were protests and tens of thousands of people in the petitions. And then when the NBA discontinued their season, 4 days later, people understood why the league did what they did. And I think you're going to find when it comes to yard goats and baseball and other sports, the professional guys may help give the push to having the other pro sports get going. As David said, look, we're going to be one of the first doing with the Travelers. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a crowd, a live audience, but at least it's going to be there. And we're going to do everything we can to slowly get back to that new normal.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We look forward to that. On the softball front, Larry's playing at a much higher level than me, so I know he looks forward to getting out on the field there. Switching gears here a little bit, we have a question that just came in from the leadership at Goodspeed Musicals. We want to thank you both for your leadership during this pandemic. They have paid close attention to all of the notes on faces, but have not heard anything about theaters. Can you share your thoughts on timing for us and capacity restrictions? We are anxious to get our audience back to the theater and return as an economic engine for Middlesex County.
Yeah, that's a great question, and thank you for that. Phase 3 is the short answer. So as of now, that's mid-July. as I mentioned at the outset, we are having conversations about outdoor events as well as indoor events, what that capacity is going to look like, if it's going to be 50%, for example, or something else. I think the baseline for a lot of this is going to be, really 6-foot spacing inside, certainly when you're watching a show for an hour or 2 hours, between family units or groups that are living together, most likely. That's going to be the mindset. So whether that's 50% or the 6 foot is more of a constraint, I think that's the framework we're likely going to use for those theaters, such as that one, as we get into phase 3. And again, that's best guess, that's 4 weeks from phase 2 start, which would be July 15th. But we're going to watch the data, as I mentioned right before the governor got on. It'll be really important that we understand the potential transmission from what we're enabling in phase 2 to make sure that we've got that under control and the trend keeps being going the right way for the state.
Question is, can you break even at 50% capacity at Goodspeed or some of these other venues?
Indeed. Thank you both. Next one is on testing, actually, from one of our resident first selectmen here in Great Middlesex County. Why are we so far behind our neighboring states, Vermont, Massachusetts, actually Vermont, Maine, and Rhode Island are her examples, on testing of non-symptomatic folks? This is crucial for people to feel safe going back into the world.
Well, I'm not quite sure about the pretext of the question. We're close to having 10% of our population tested. That puts us, close to the top of the pack right now. As you probably know, we now have the testing capacity, and we also have the track and trace capacity. Now our effort is to get people tested and get people willing to answer the phone when we do track and trace. We've got a lot of folks who just don't feel confident or comfortable getting tested at this point. Especially, we can do that in the nursing homes, we can do that in the correctional facilities, trying to do that in urban neighborhoods where people live closer together, more likely to have a spread there. We're really taking the testing right to the neighborhoods, doing everything we can to encourage them to get tested, reminding them that there's absolutely no cost, reminding them that if you need treatment, there's no cost for that. Reminding them that if you do test positive, that we can find a hotel space for you, but urging people to get tested, saying why it's the right thing to do, not for your own health, but for your family and your community is really key. And it's the same thing, Jeff, on the track and trace. We've got the capacity up there now, but half the people who test positive, we give them a call, don't return the call. So we have some catching up to do, and I think we have some public outreach to do, and you could perhaps help us with that at the chamber.
We are happy to do just that, Governor. Happy to work with your office anytime. Commissioner, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think the governor said it best. Broadly though, I just want to make sure the metrics on a per capita basis, and I'm not sure if there's specifics on the asymptomatic there, but Connecticut is top quartile in terms of testing per capita.
Excellent. Thank you. That's good news. As you both know, we have a number of golfers and a number of wonderful golf courses in Middlesex County, so we have a question about golf here. Many golf courses are continuing to have players take separate carts to promote social distancing. This does increase cost to players. However, there are some restrictions that once they go in to have a drink or a bite to eat after their round, there aren't necessarily the same restrictions after they leave the course. I guess it's more of a general question as we work through the summer here and have more folks on the courses. Anything with respect to the loosening of restrictions on golf courses? So
what I'll just say there is we've really looked to the Connecticut Golf Association and the USGA more broadly in terms of best practices. So, and we have changed when they've changed. So if we're out of line with them right now, there's no reason for us to be. So we're happy to amend that. And again, our goal is not to increase costs or decrease the fun of golf. We just want to keep folks safe. So again, we can take that up offline, but the Golf Association and our office are in constant dialogue on that.
Jeff, the only thing I'd add is, unlike our neighbors like New York, we never closed down golf courses. We always thought it was a sport that, if done appropriately, and I play a little bit, you can do it with social distancing. So we kept it going nonstop.
Great. Thank you, Governor. We'll have to get a foursome together. Moving on here.
Just might be 4 carts, it sounds like.
That's right. That's okay. Whatever it takes. Moving on, question from Chatham Health here. This may be a little bit, we've covered some of this already, but I'll still deliver the question if you don't mind. Is there any consideration being given to allow an overnight/residential camps to open? While living in the same space as someone presents among the highest risks for transmission, there is not the same daily push and pull between campers, staff, and the community on a daily basis that might trigger community transmission.
Go ahead,
Sorry,
Lou.
I was going to say, so this has been a topic that has been discussed, and ultimately there's been an executive order out on this. So, I know Beth Bai, who really oversees this, has had constant dialogue with other states, and this is an area where other states have generally not made decisions, even though I think they need to be made right now. And ultimately, if we're going to potentially even change our decision, we realize it needs to be done immediately. But there were meaningful concerns from the health folks, especially where we were 3 or 4 weeks ago, even with the residential camps, given the risks that we think could be there in any kind of congregate setting. So that's been the concern. And right now our camps are not open, but I'll turn it over to the governor if he has a different view on that. But we realize timing is important here.
No, it was timing, Jeff. I mean, the overnight camps said we need a decision by early June so we can plan accordingly. And we just couldn't pull the trigger on that. Congregate setting, like David said, just a little riskier. One of the first to do a day camp, certainly. And we work like heck, but this COVID is so infectious and things change so dramatically month to month. It's just tough for us to project out 2 months. And we couldn't give them the certainty that they needed.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Commissioner. We're at 12:51 here. We'll plan to wrap up around 1 p.m. And we're going to give the coach the last word here, but I have a few more if you don't mind. We do have on the meeting today the chairman of the Middlesex County Revitalization Commission, which is a regional lending partner of the state and revolving loan fund that's headquartered here in Middlesex County. We have a great record of engaging small businesses and assisting them with business expansion. Commissioner, do you see a role for the regional lenders moving forward as we transition from mitigation to recovery here in the state of Connecticut?
Yeah, I think it's quite possible. I mean, I think, I'd love nothing more once we get past the reopen here to start talking about recovery and what tools are needed. And, what I've seen through the regional apparatus that is up on the lending front, that certainly could be a valuable framework and network for us to utilize. My preference though versus what I saw the state do around 10 years ago is I do want to work much more with the private sector broadly as a capital source. And some of the decision making around the lending, even if it's going to be incentivized in some way for investment or job creation. I just think the private sector, they're pros at doing that, and I'd want to work with them or alongside them as opposed to compete with them. So if we are going to do something regionally, it would be with the private sector too and our regional partners.
Thank you, Commissioner. We look forward to those conversations moving forward. There's a question here regarding the prognosis for small businesses in general. This is more of a statistic-based question. How many, or I guess this is probably an estimate, what percentage do you believe will very unfortunately not reopen in our state?
It's really tough to tell. So close to 60,000 businesses have gotten PPP, and that's 6.7 billion. And there's still capacity. I forget if David mentioned it in the intro there, but there's still capacity for at least, I guess, until June 30th in PPP. And that really is critical. Without that 6.7 billion, we would have seen a significant, thousands or tens of thousands of failures. But of those that perhaps didn't get PPP or PPP wasn't enough given other issues in their business, you certainly could see a considerable amount of businesses go down, but because of PPP, it'll be a lot less. There's been speculation to date, Jeff, but there hasn't been good data other than, you hear when you talk to the restaurant industry or the catering industry, there's certainly examples of it. But right now, in terms of what percentage, I couldn't give you a better answer than that. But we'll see soon enough. But thankfully for PPP, that'll mitigate a lot of it.
Hey, Jeff, I'd also tell small business, I come out of small business, hang in there. I really believe that our phones are ringing off the hook. I've got folks from New York and Boston and other places, maybe you've heard this too, all thinking about a different lifestyle in this post-COVID world, a more horizontal lifestyle, less high rises, less elevators, less subways. And I think that's all gonna be to the benefit of our suburban communities, our small towns, even our cities. So I'd really urge small business. We've got the PPE. David there, he's got the bridge loans, doing everything we can to help them power through. Because I think we're going to be in relatively good shape if we can get the COVID under control. I think the winds will be to Connecticut's back at that point.
Thank you, Governor. And our chamber stands ready to work with you and your team in any way that we can to support the recovery here in our state. Switching gears back to the chat portal here. Thank you for addressing so many important topics. The governor has made coronavirus testing for workers in skilled nursing and assisted living homes. We want to know if there is funding for this, as private health insurance will not cover the cost unless medically necessary. Any thoughts on that front, Governor?
Yeah, medically necessary means you're showing symptoms and you can self-diagnose there. I wish I could offer more clarity. I've got a big hole in our budget right now. We've got for testing somewhere between 200 million and 800 million. You say, what the heck, what's going on? We have no idea, Jeff, at this point, whether FEMA will provide 75% funding for this, give us a copay, so to speak. And this is a distress for states across the country. We need more clarity on that front. Right now, Connecticut is footing the bill, extending the testing out, especially to those highest risk communities, because that's where you can have a potential flare up, and a flare up can spread to the community. I think we'll have more clarity from the feds within the next week or two, but I've been saying that for weeks.
Okay, thank you, Governor. We have another question from a municipal official here, the First Selectwoman of Portland, great partner of ours. Just received notice that reimbursement for election supplies may not be available for towns. Can you perhaps shed some light on this?
Go for it, David.
I was gonna say, well, I don't know the answer offhand, but we can certainly follow up and get back on that one, unless you know, Governor.
All I know is that Denise Merrill, our Secretary of State, has received some millions of dollars from the feds to facilitate elections. And so she's using that for poll watchers and the such, many of whom were older and senior, and maybe they were volunteering in years past, but they're less likely to be doing it now in this COVID era. So we may have to incent some people to do it. So I'd ask the mayor, here's how you pass the buck. Call the Secretary of State.
Okay, we will do just that. Thank you. I think we have time for maybe one or two more. Again, from the Chatham Health District, who's been very supportive of our efforts here in recent months and weeks and months. With hotels permitted to reopen on June 17th, will there be an executive order that rescinds or modifies the restriction on short-term rentals and lodging? Yes. And will travelers from out of state have any specific recommendations on restrictions to their movement in our communities? I believe we've covered this a bit, but I'll throw it back to you, gentlemen.
Yeah, so Executive Order 7T is the order that's being referenced there, and that will be revoked or rescinded in advance of June 17th, because we're not having a recommendation for 14-day quarantine upon entry into the state, and we're not limiting short-term rentals or short-term hotel rooms. So all of that will be addressed in what we're calling our Phase 2 opening executive order, which likely is going to come out Monday. There's a chance it comes out before, but that'll be in there, and we don't anticipate any recommendations or limitations on people coming into the state, as we are encouraging that effectively by opening hotels at this point in time.
Okay, great. And I think we'll do one more, and it's back to outdoor events and weddings, if you don't mind here. Governor Lamont's most recent Phase 2/3 reopening plan specifically outdoor events, but he still speaks of weddings as if they cannot occur until a later phase. An outdoor wedding follows all of his protocols outlined in the most recent reopening phase guidelines, stating that the outdoor event must fall within 50% capacity limits, have invited guests only, and take place within a set time frame. I'm interpreting that as a wedding. If this is the case, the Wadsworth Mansion could begin hosting weddings at the end of June for those who are willing to adhere to the above mentioned requirements, as well as those that fall within his previously issued executive orders.
So the answer to that question is, yeah, weddings can occur. Listen, they can occur now with a 25-person cap outdoors, and June 17th at 50-person. The question and where we're spending time now is, how do we make that 50? Can we make that 50 number bigger? Certainly outdoors, and then what can we do indoors for the industry? So there's the kind of private event guidance where we think there's increased commingling and socializing, that is capped at 50 as of June 17th. But that's exactly what we're discussing, and we want to provide that clarity to groups.
Hey, Jeff, I'll just add, because I've been living this every day. My daughter was planning to get married on Labor Day weekend. And so I believe me, I know the distress this is putting families through. And we will be opening up the lens a little bit on these type of events. But I'll tell you, they would say, how come we can have a graduation up to 150 with socially distanced, and I can't have a wedding up to 150? And we had an amazing group of healthcare professionals, epidemiologists, infectious disease people, and they just gave us a practical warning that there's a very different structure there. You maybe remember the pandemic really hit Westchester County at a funeral in New Rochelle. And weddings obviously are much more social events than, say, a graduation, in the sense that you're eating, you're drinking, you're dancing. It's not as natural as the social distancing. So, look, I feel horrible. And I live it every day with my daughter, how cautious we've been about opening the lens here. We will continue to open the lens every couple of weeks, as David points out. But I think we want to do it in a way that does not, what would be a body blow to the confidence in our economies if we had to pull back, like you're seeing in some other states right now. And I hope we're not going to let that happen.
Okay, thank you, Governor and Commissioner. Johanna, as indicated, nothing has come into the chamber email with respect to questions, so I'll kick it back to Larry. Coach.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank David Glidden and his team at Liberty Bank for stepping forward and sponsoring this today. Terrific turnout. We had over 225 on Zoom and a big, big number on Facebook Live. This will be recorded and it'll also be shown on our webpage for people who want to get back to it. Governor, I don't know if you remember, I did send you a couple of notes back in late March, early April, when we were moving forward with this epidemic. And I was amazed at your press conference, the way you were so transparent and so dedicated and so upfront of what we were facing and how you were going to be dedicated to defeating this and moving forward in a safe, fair way. Now we dial forward a few months afterwards, and my thoughts towards you are exactly the same. And also to David, because I've seen him, do so much also through DECD. A huge, huge thanks for your leadership. A bigger thanks for your dedication. And a bigger thanks for your love of our great state of Connecticut. I'm very proud of you, and I'm very thankful for you and your team for what you've done. Everyone have a great day. The sun always shines in Middlesex County. Thank you very much.
Hey, Larry, thanks.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks, everyone.